Level 1 Tracado, street dealer. You grew up in one of Medellin's comunas, those colorful yet deceptive hillside shantytowns built atop the city where the walls of houses are painted pink, yellow, turquoise, because even poverty sometimes tries to make itself look beautiful. But the cracks beneath the paint deepen with every rain, just like everything else inside this neighborhood. In the mornings you look down toward the wealthy districts. Below that is a different Medellin, with its wide avenues, glass buildings, and supermarket shelves stocked with enough to spare. Practically another country, and the distance between those two worlds is only a few kilometers. But what it takes to descend is measured not in geography, but in other things entirely. Your father wakes every morning at 5 and goes to the flower market. Colombia is the world's largest cut flower exporter. Carnations and roses harvested from the fields fly to Miami, Amsterdam, Tokyo, but this fact earns him nothing. He comes home with soil on his hands and shadows under his eyes, and on the table there is nothing but bread, and sometimes not even bread. There is school, but school might as well not exist, because the teacher hasn't been paid and doesn't come. The government only passes through here during election seasons, and even then only with promises, plastic chairs, and 3 days' worth of food, nothing more. You are 14, and every day the same young man stands on the corner of the neighborhood, clean sneakers, leather jacket, a gold bracelet catching the sun, a motorcycle that is one of the newest models. The way he looks at you holds neither pity nor contempt, only an offer wordless but crystal clear, as though he already knows your answer and is simply waiting for you to realize it yourself. Your first task is to deliver an envelope to a man 2 streets away. You don't know what's inside, but you can guess, and you silence that guess, because what you receive in return is twice your father's weekly earnings, and that number silences every moral question in your mind in a single stroke. You hear those questions, but something else speaks louder. The voice of hunger, the voice of shame, the voice of your father's tired and bending back. When you come home that night, your mother asks, "Where were you?" You say, "With friends." The lie comes so easily that its ease is the thing that troubles you most. When you lay your head on the pillow and close your eyes, you rewind to that moment. You remember that your hand did not tremble when you held out the envelope. This both reassures you and makes you feel like a stranger to yourself. Level 2. Sicario, hitman, enforcer. To become a sicario in Medellin at the end of the 1980s is to choose one of the city's most feared and shortest-lived professions. The average life expectancy after entering this work is 2 to 3 years. But you don't think about that, because in the comunas, making long-term plans is a luxury. Surviving at all is already an achievement, and most people fail, even at that, before they are gone. They give you a motorcycle, a Honda, secondhand, but the engine is sound. They put a man on the back, and they say, "Stop at that corner." Go when you get the signal. In this world, everything runs on codes. A handkerchief of a certain color, a phone ringing at a specific hour, how many times the horn is pressed. These are the letters of a mute alphabet, and you learn this alphabet fast, because not learning it, not understanding it, being 1 second late are considered mistakes with a very heavy price. After your first operation, you feel your hands shaking. You go into the bathroom and hold your face under cold water. You look in the mirror, and you want to say something to the man looking back at you, but you don't know what, so you say nothing. You dry your face, and you walk out. You show this trembling to no one, because here, fear is not a weakness, it is a target. A frightened man is not included in the next operation. A man not included cannot advance. A man left in the field ends up, sooner or later, either inside a prison or inside the ground. The cartel during this period has established such deep power in Medellin that municipal buses reroute during operation hours. Police officers plan their patrol rotations with the cartel's schedule in mind, because the alternative, plata o plomo, silver or lead, is no empty threat. Hundreds of judges, journalists, police officers were brought before this choice, and all of them gave an answer. They chose the silver. Everyone chooses it. Those who didn't are remembered, but are not living. And when you complete that sentence in your head, you notice how weightless the word remembered is, and how heavy not living, sits. Level 3. Contador, money laundering accountant. The cartel noticed something different about you. You have a good relationship with numbers. During those few years when you could attend school regularly, mathematics was always your strength. You kept ledgers, figures settle into your mind, and this skill here is worth more than gold. Because bullets can be found, men can be found, but finding a trustworthy accountant is something else entirely. You are no longer in the field. You are in a back room, on the second floor of an ordinary-looking textile shop in downtown Medellín. In a windowless room, a calculator beside you, and ledgers full of figures spread out in front of you. Every row has a story, but you don't read the stories. You only balance the numbers. The cartel during this period generates approximately $60 million in cash per day. When you first heard that figure, it meant nothing, and it still doesn't quite. But every morning when you sit at your desk, a small fraction of that amount passes through your hands, and even a small fraction is more than your father will earn in a lifetime. The money passes through more than one layer. First, small businesses in Medellín, bakeries, flower shops, taxi companies, absorb the cash through fictitious sales. Then this money is transferred to shell companies in Panama. From there, it is converted into real estate investments in Miami, because the Miami property market of the 1980s was inflated almost entirely by this money. The skyscrapers in Brickell, the hotels on South Beach. No one asked. No one wanted to ask, because asking was not profitable. You are one link in this chain, and as long as the numbers balance, you are safe. Your coffee on the desk going cold, but there is no time to drink it. When the numbers don't balance, when a single zero enters the wrong column, the only one who will answer for it is you. Because an accountant's error is not forgiven. Money does not disappear. It only changes location. And the only man who knows where it went is you. You carry this pressure home every night. You see numbers in your dreams, sometimes correctly aligned, sometimes not. And when they are misaligned, you wake up, feel your heart beating fast, think it is real, then begin to question what the word real even means anymore. Level 4. Jefe de Plaza, District Commander. Medellín is divided into 3 main zonas, and you are now responsible for one of them, meaning every gram of product, every collection, every dispute, and every new recruit in your district passes through your approval. Your name is not spoken aloud, but your presence is felt, and the difference between those two things is the greatest power at this level. The most important thing you learn here is this: power is measured not by how many people you control, but by how few people question you. And to go unquestioned, you sometimes need to be visible, and sometimes need to disappear entirely. In running your district, you operate 2 parallel systems. On the visible side, you resolve neighborhood problems, disputes between neighbors, debt disagreements, sometimes money for a child's school books, a handyman for an elderly woman's leaking roof. The cartel during this period, under Escobar's orders, builds football pitches in the comunas, distributes meat door to door at Christmas, rushes aid after flooding, because Escobar understood a truth very clearly. The love of the people is a far more solid shield than the power of the police or the informants of the state. If people love you, when a stranger comes asking questions, they say, "I don't know." And that "I don't know" is sometimes the most effective weapon of all. On the invisible side, there is operational discipline. Product warehouses change every week. No address is visited twice. Logistics routes are cyclical and never overlap with the previous route. All communication is coded, and nothing is ever spoken openly by telephone, because the DEA, during these years, is far more active in Colombia. Its intelligence capacity is growing. An electronic surveillance unit called Centra Spike is tracking Escobar's radio transmissions, and a single leaked piece of information, a single inconsistent movement, can unravel an entire network. You manage both worlds simultaneously. By day, a neighborhood elder. By night, a district commander. And in both worlds, you try to remain human. But you increasingly find this second task far more difficult. And notice that in the mornings, looking in the mirror, it is becoming harder to tell which one is real. Level 5 Lugarteniente, Deputy Commander. You are now directly beneath Escobar. Only one layer separates you, and that layer both protects and condemns you, both at once, every day. At this level, decisions stop being abstract and acquire flesh and bone. Which government official will be persuaded? which rival organization will be dismantled, where you will stand in the escalating tension with the Cali cartel, where the operational line will be drawn. And then Escobar makes a decision. The decision to apply pressure on the state through attacks on civilian targets, car bombs, assassinations, hostages, the mid-air destruction of Avianca Flight 203. And you are how many steps removed from the implementation of these decisions? 3, 4? And is that distance far enough? Is it sufficient to silence a conscience? You calculate this at night but never arrive at a clean number. Colombia during this period is virtually split in two. On one side, hundreds of thousands of people are sending their children to school, holding weddings, watching football matches, going to the market. On the other side is the system you inhabit, and that system erodes those people's lives a little more with every passing day, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, but always, really. You know this. You pretend not to know, because going back is now both impossible and admitting this to yourself is almost unbearable. Perhaps a part of you no longer wants to, because there is no place left to go back to. That Comuna's corner long ago became another child's corner. Level 6, Pablo Escobar, and the truth. Reaching this level is theoretically impossible because this level was a single man, and that man was killed on the 2nd of December 1993 on the rooftop of a house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellín, socks on his feet, hair disheveled, radio in hand. He had celebrated his 44th birthday the day before. At his peak, Forbes called him the 7th wealthiest person in the world. His fortune was estimated at around $25 billion. He had stockpiled so much cash that he could not prevent rats from eating it and moisture from rotting it in the warehouses. They had calculated that roughly $2 million was lost this way every year. He didn't care. He had his own prison built to his own specifications, La Catedral, on the hillsides of Envigado, with a jacuzzi, a football pitch, a disco ball, a private chef, and even so he never felt safe. Because the greater power grows, the more enemies it produces. And beyond a certain point, what is being protected is not the man himself, but his paranoia. He changed his sleeping location every night, never approached a window. The list of people he trusted grew a little shorter every month. The collapse of the Medellín Cartel did not happen all at once, and this is perhaps the darkest truth of all. First came Los Pepes, the paramilitary group fighting Escobar that at times cooperated with the government, striking at his family, striking at his men. Then the Cali cartel began sharing intelligence with the Colombian government and the DEA to eliminate its rival. Then his own men turned, one by one. Because Plata o Plomo was no longer only a lever in Escobar's hands. It was coming from every direction, and the freedom to choose slowly narrowed, slowly vanished. Now go back and calculate. How many of those on this road spent 10, 20, 30 years in the dark corridors of Bella Vista prison? How many were tried quietly in remote Colombian towns with no one to hear? How many never saw their family again, missed their child's first steps, could not attend their mother's funeral? How many climbed off the back of that motorcycle only to enter a cell or enter the ground? And be honest with yourself, truly honest. That first day on that Comuna's corner, when you took the envelope and saw the sneakers, the gold bracelet, the motorcycle, did those things look like freedom to you, or were they a cage from the very beginning and you simply, in that moment, mistook the only thing in your hand for the only choice you had? Medellín today is counted among the world's fastest urban transformations. Cable cars climbing the mountains, museums, tourism, architecture awards. But the paint on the Comuna's walls is still cracking. And still, on every corner, someone stands holding an envelope, looking at a 14-year-old in that gaze. Neither pity nor contempt, only an offer, wordless but crystal clear. The Medellín Cartel controlled approximately 80% of the world's cocaine trade until its collapse in 1993. This text was written not to glorify criminal organizations, but to understand how such structures draw ordinary people in through ordinary desperation.